would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we record this podcast, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today.
Trigger warning for this episode, we discuss adult themes, body image, diet culture, and it contains some coarse language, so please be aware if you have little ears around.
Hello and welcome to Life Academy. I'm your host, Dena Amy Kaplan, and today it's just me and my very special guest. It's a little bit different today. I've got someone very special here in the studio who I wanted you guys to meet. As you know, on Life Academy, we love talking about life lessons and meeting interesting people and telling fascinating stories. And there is someone here today who I think has one of the most fascinating stories I've ever heard. And I wanted to share it with you guys. So I'm here in my comfies. I've got no makeup on. It's just me and my Uncle Barry, who is here from South Africa. And I'm so excited to introduce him. I feel so privileged that he said yes and agreed to do this interview, this podcast interview. So I'm going to skip all the usual hoo-ha that we do at the start. And I'm just going to throw it over to my Uncle Barry, Barry Goodman. Hello and welcome to Life Academy.
Hi, Dena. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to be here.
I've always resisted the request, the suggestion to record my life story, to make a movie of my life, to write a book. So maybe this is a good little beginning to try and have an open, organic, honest chat and to tell the truth of my story as I recall it, as I know it to be my truth. As I tell my story, as I share whatever I'm going to share today, I can see my wiser older brothers maybe correcting me or saying that that's not quite how it happened. So
it's your story.
It's my story. It's the story that I have understood has been my journey in my life and my history as I understand it.
Well, I'm so looking forward to getting into the conversation. Before we get started, one thing I would love our listeners to know and understand is that I lived in LA on and off for about 10 years. And every time I was in LA, I lived with you and we formed a beautiful connection. I always call it a soul connection because I've always felt that we had such a strong, deep, spiritual and soulful connection. And you've always been my favorite. Don't tell anyone else in the family, but you're my favorite person. And this was inspired by Jules Sebastian. So we had her on the podcast a few weeks ago, and she has also stayed at your house because every Australian actor and musician has stayed at your house when they've been in LA, which we'll get onto. But Jules was like, "Oh my God, you've got to get Uncle Barry on the podcast." And then I was like, "Oh my God, he's going to be visiting Australia soon. This is my opportunity." And it all just lined up and it worked out and we got some studio time. And I feel very lucky that you've taken some time off your holiday in Australia to come and sit with me to do what we do best, which is have a deep and meaningful conversation. But this time the whole world gets to hear your story. And I've been telling you for years to write a book or, that we need to make a movie or we need to do something. We need to tell your story. And this is a great opportunity. So let's get started. If you don't mind, I would love to start at the very beginning because I think the start of your life is quite unique. Can you tell me a little bit about your, from as young as 2 years old, which the stories I've heard about, obviously?
Yeah, sure. I'm the baby of 4 boys and my older brothers are 8, 10 and 12 years my senior. I believe my parents wanted many kids. My parents were creative, artistic. My dad was a fiddler by passion. I remember
Fiddler on the Roof?
A violinist.
Oh, wow.
My dad led the Cape Town University Orchestra, in my understanding, for something like 20 years. I believe that he used to say that his parents said, they were Eastern European Jews, and they came to England and then to South Africa. And my dad wanted to be a violinist as a profession. And his parents said, "Me can't nicht machen ein Leben mit a fiddle." You can't make a living with a fiddle. You've got to go to university and get a degree and make your way that way. So he was a pharmacist by profession, but a musician by passion. I remember going to many recitals and concerts at the university and growing up in South Africa. Anyway, my mom died my mom had cancer, I believe, when she had it for, I think, 2 to 3 years before she passed. And she passed when I was 2.5.
Just to pause you there, that's so wild for me to take into consideration and to sit with, because I have a 2.5-year-old who you just met in the last few days. Maya is 2.5. And to just imagine not being with her at this age, at this like pivotal young age of 2.5, and the attachment and the bond that we have as mother and daughter, to lose your mother at 2.5, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what that does to a child.
I don't know that I know what it does to a child. I certainly believe that there's trauma.
Yeah.
And we carry trauma, the effects of the life that we are born into.
The cards were dealt.
The cards that were dealt. You know, looking back on my life, I feel very lucky and very blessed to have the 68 years that I've had, and please God, many, many, many more. So I believe that I was born into this very creative musical family, and my mom passed, and I was taken shortly after the funeral in Cape Town. I went with her younger sister, my auntie Tilly, to Johannesburg to live with them, and I lived with them, and I believe that that's where I was given a lot of love, and those were probably the 2.5 most stable years of my young formative years. And the way I understand it is my Aunt Tilly and Uncle Tepi, I was the fourth of their. They had 3 kids at the time, and then another child, Felicity, was born while I was still living with them. Yeah, if I could have changed anything in my journey, it would have been the desire that I would have been raised in that stable home of Tilly and Tepi in Johannesburg. And I have a very close relationship with their children today, who are all grown up and living in America and Canada. I believe they wanted to adopt me. My dad turned to his sister and said, you know, what do I do? And she said, you don't give up a child, you find a wife. And so here's the crazy part of the story is that my dad was a judo and karate expert. Besides being a violinist, I believe he had a brown belt. I like to say, sometimes in my story, I've said, oh, my dad was a black belt in judo and karate, but he wasn't. He had a brown belt. He asked his sister what he should do, and his sister said, you should find a wife, and you don't give up a child.
In the 2 years that you were with your aunt for?
Almost 3 years with Tilly and Tepi.
Where was he in the picture in those years? Like, would he come and visit? Like, did you?
I have no memory of that.
Yeah.
I do believe that I saw. There must have been some contact. He must have come up, but he still had 3 other boys. I think those boys were in boarding school. Dad was a pharmacist and went to work at 8 and worked till 7 and had a busy pharmacy, a busy practice, and he did his music. And I don't think my dad was type of connected. I don't think he was a very connected father. I think he just did the best that he could with the tools that he had. Yeah, I don't know how much I saw him in those 3 years. I know that Tilly and Tepi would come down to Cape Town every summer on the holidays, and all the sisters, that part of the family, would all gather together in Muizenberg and spend time at the beach together and with our other aunts and uncles. I was taken out of that home and went to live with my father's sister's daughter, who's my cousin Joan from my dad's side, who is still alive and living in Cheltenham in her 90s. And shout out to cousin Joan if she ever listens to this. What a wonderful, beautiful human. And I went to live with Joan and Manny Lazarus in Cape Town for a year. So I had my late mom and dad. Then I lived with mommy and daddy number 2, Tilly and Tepi.
And now we're up to mommy number 3.
Then I went to mommy number 3.
Right.
And lived with Joan and Manny for a year. And then my father went to a party one evening, maybe a Saturday night. My oldest brother, Rodney, was seeing slightly older woman named Joan, who was a very beautiful woman. They spoke about her as being a little bit of an Ursula Andress lookalike. And Joan and my brother were dating, and they went to this party. And at the party, my dad spotted Joan and started chatting with her.
Oh my God.
And the story goes that my oldest brother, who has passed on 2 years ago, that he went to say, Joan, it's time to go home. And she said,
I'm going home with your dad.
I'm going home with your dad.
Oh my God.
And I don't know if we should be airing all of our dirty laundry, all of our family laundry out in public this way, but the story has it that my dad and Rodney were staying in a hotel, like a motel with an outdoor entrance access corridor, and Rodney went back to his room, and a little while later he heard pitter patter pitter patter as his father took his girlfriend
home
and spent the night with her next door.
Oh my God, the tea. You know what that means?
Yes. Well, we spilt that tea.
Yeah, wow.
Joan and my dad were married for 7 years from the time I was 5 to 12.
How old was she?
She was 24 years younger than my father. And that was mommy number 4.
Number 4. And what, she was in her late 20s?
She was 24.
24.
Yeah, when she married my dad.
So mummy number 4, you are now what, maybe 6 years old?
I was 6 years old, yes.
Is a 24-year-old that your dad met at a party.
Yeah.
Your brother's girlfriend, essentially.
Yeah.
Wild. Okay, so you're 6 years old and the story is already this wild.
Yeah. So dad's married to Joan. I believe Joan wanted her own kids and he couldn't give her any kids.
Okay.
And 6 years later, she had an affair with my dad's best friend, who was our family physician.
Oh my gosh.
And it was wild. And I think it almost got violent.
Okay.
And Joan went off with this guy, this family doctor, a friend of ours.
Oh my gosh.
And they got married and they had 3 kids and moved to Australia. I don't know that I need to mention names, but they lived here. I know their kids are living here.
Wow.
Kids, they're all my age and older. Yeah, Dad divorced Joan. I remember Joan taking me into the garden as a 12-year-old, and she sat down on the lawn and she said to me, Barry, I'm divorcing your dad and I want to know who you want to live with. And this memory is clear for me. I remember circling her on the grass, walking around her in utter confusion, saying, I don't know how to choose who to live with. And I remember, how do you ask a 12-year-old? I didn't go with Joan. I stayed with my dad. My dad lived in a duplex. And one day I climbed the neighbor's wall to pick some plums from her plum tree. And this lady came out and she said, you don't have to climb the wall to pick the fruit, little boy. You can come into the garden. And I put a bag of, I think she gave me a bag, and I picked half a dozen plums. And I went back into the house and I said, Daddy, what a nice lady. She gave me a bag of fruit. And that lady became mommy number 5.
Oh my goodness.
As Dad thanked Barbara, the neighbor, and married her. And Dad and Barbara stayed married till he passed in 1990 at the age of 75. So they were married for about 18 years. I think I was always looking for love. I think I was always looking for the love of my mother. I always felt I was looking for my mommy. And
it makes me feel really emotional.
Yeah.
Just to think I just keep thinking of Maya and not being around for her anymore and having so much instability, and it makes me feel so emotional that you had that.
Yeah.
I just know you and I know your heart, and you're the most loving, big, warm, affectionate person. And it's like, despite all the odds against you, you turned out to be this incredibly loving, warm, connected, spiritual human being. And it's sort of fascinating because you could have gone one. It's like one way or the other. You know, you were either going to be really cold and broken, but you aren't. You're just like the warmest, most loving person, and it makes me so emotional. Like, I don't think I really knew the story. I've known about all the fascinating parts of your life, but more in your adult life. And I only heard recently about you losing your mother at 2 years old, and then hearing the story that your brother was spoon feeding you, like trying to make you eat at 2 years old, like that your older brothers were looking after you. Like,
so Colin, the brother who's 8 years older than me in particular, used to spoon feed me and loves telling that story. And we're so very close.
And he changed your nappies?
I don't know that.
He told me that.
Did he tell you that?
Yeah, he said he would change your
my
nappies
and spoon feed me. And we have a very, very close connection. And he's part of the reason that I am living in Cape Town today after 46 years in Los Angeles. But we'll get to that, the chronology there. But yes, I have a very special brother and sister-in-law, Colin and Olga. Today, as he's turning 78, I'm sort of there for him, and we have this very special friendship and bond.
How old was he when he was feeding you and changing your nappies?
He was 10. I was 2 and he was 10.
Oh, really? It makes me
so
emotional.
I think that the trauma that I survived. You talk about who I am, kind, loving. Thank you. You have very kind eyes and a very beautiful heart, and that's how you see me.
That's how everyone sees you.
It's not. I'm not so sure that's how everyone sees me. Sometimes I've wondered if I've compensated for the emptiness, for the lacking, for the longing to be connected, to be loved. If that helped, influenced my ability to be loving,
big,
caring, being this personality.
Yes.
I have thought many times that I'm very blessed and very lucky to have what I have, to be Barry Goodman. I feel very lucky that I didn't end up crashed and in a different life.
Yeah.
That I am very blessed, and I God, genetics, the universe, Hashem, my mazal, my luck, my very beautiful, blessed family. I have this big, beautiful family, and I think I'm known in the family to sort of be the glue. I'm always wanting to connect.
Yeah, you are.
I think we all need connection. I think it's
the antidote.
It's the
antidote.
Yeah, I think it's how we're wired.
Yeah.
That whether we realize it or not, we all want connection. And I'll just jump into as my journey as I got older. Dad married Barbara, and I was on the school bus one day, and the kid next to me. We were driving through Constantia, through Takai, through a beautiful neighborhood, and this kid next to me on the bus points out to a house and says, "Men go there at night." And somewhere in my brain, I registered, it struck something in me.
What did he mean by that, men go there at night?
It was a house that gay men went to party and gather.
Okay.
And somehow he just told me that.
How old were you?
14, 15.
Okay.
I must have been 15.
And it struck a chord.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
I don't think that I was very conscious. I knew that that I was same-sex attracted. I knew that I liked girls, but I liked boys. It was different.
It was different.
I remember going to watch my cousins in Johannesburg, Felicity and Regan, play castanets. And I was fascinated. I remember my cousin giving me, when I left the country to come to America, we'll get there, and she put into an album a little strand of hair. And I just loved the girls, but I felt something different for boys. And when this kid on the bus told me about that, I started to wonder, how can I go there? I have to go there.
I didn't know this.
It's kind of the underbelly. It's kind of like, should I be sharing all of this and maybe in editing, you'll want to take this out. But I'll just tell you my whole...
Trust me, I won't want to take it out. But if you want to take it out, we can take it out. But I think it's brilliant. I didn't know this because what I knew about my Uncle Barry was that he was a rabbi and then he became a gay man.
Oh, oi, okay.
So that was the story that I knew, that my Uncle Barry was a rabbi who married a really religious Jewish woman, and they got married and they had 3 children, and then he came out as a gay man. So I didn't know at 14 and 15 you knew inside that you were gay.
But I didn't know to verbalize. This is the 70s in South Africa. There's no gay role modeling.
Yeah.
There's no conversation.
There's no representation anywhere. You're not seeing it.
So I started having encounters as a 15-year-old. My dad used to lock his bedroom door at night. And I figured out, well, if I start locking my bedroom door, then I can climb out of my bedroom window and bike over to that house.
Oh my gosh.
And that's what I started doing.
Oh my gosh.
I climbed out of my bedroom window. I had to navigate through the rose garden, take my bicycle, and I knocked on that door as a 15-year-old, and I told them I was 18. It's a little scary to think that as a youngster, as a kid, I mean, I think that's considered pedophilia for them to sleep with a 15-year-old boy.
Were you sleeping with men at that age?
From the very first night I entered that house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
And that started 2 years of me climbing out of my bedroom window and riding to the train station, parking my bike in somebody's backyard, taking the train into town because I'd heard there was a disco, a gay club. Going into that club, I had many, many encounters as a 15 and 16-year-old, more than I would care to.
It's a bit more trauma, really, isn't it?
Yes.
At 15 years old, that's, as you said, that's not an age to be making those decisions.
I want to be honest about, there's my story and there's also sort of being sensational. And I maybe the details aren't that important and we don't have to get into sensationalism. So I struggled because I knew I was being bad. I didn't understand that I was gay, that I was, I just knew this was wrong. It was like I was so driven to find.
And it would have been so addictive because
these men were loving me.
You hadn't felt love.
Correct. And that wasn't love.
No, but it was a form of connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It makes total sense why you would have been seeking that.
Yes. And there are many stories. A celebrity, a singer, Joe Dolan, came to the Three Arts Theatre, and I ended up going there, and I ended up going backstage, and he took me home, and then I thought he fell in love with me, and I was with him for a few nights, and then I don't know how I did this as a child in a home, but I did.
Well, I mean, it clearly shows how
disconnected
your father was and not present.
So one night, it was they had gone on holiday, a 2-week holiday.
Joan and your dad. Barbara
and my dad.
Sorry.
And they'd gone to Southwest Africa to visit her daughter. And the last night I went out and I came home at 3 a.m. and I remember coming down the road and there was the Jag in the driveway.
Oh no, you'd been caught.
Busted. And I'd been smoking cigarettes, in those days.
Yeah.
Dad was smoking cigarettes. And I remember going into the front door and running into the kitchen and rinsing my mouth with dish soap.
Oh my gosh.
In an attempt to
hide the smell, yeah.
And I remember walking down the hallway and there was my father and Joe and Barbara looking at me. And that was the one time my dad took off his belt and sort of spanked me.
Right.
Because I don't remember being whipped. I just remember he always threatened, I'll take my belt off. He never did. But that night he did. Long story short, 2 weeks later, I'm sent off to boarding school, 600 miles away. On that train, it was an overnight train. And I remember on that train thinking, okay, now I have to be good. And I got to Dale College, King Williamstown. And as soon as I got there, one of the guys said, hey, you want to come down and have a cigarette down in the basement? went down and had a cigarette.
How old were you?
I was between 15 and a half, 16. So actually, I think that it had to have been I was 14 and a half when I started. And I was active for about a year and a half. And probably just before I was 16, I went off to boarding school.
And was boarding school like a punishment? Was this like...
No, boarding school was, from my father and Barbara's perspective, it was just straight to
discipline you.
Discipline me.
Okay.
Now, they didn't know where I'd been.
No, but they just knew you were
conversation.
sneaking. You were sneaking about and you were smoking cigarettes.
And I was smoking cigarettes, yes.
Yeah, my God. I think if they knew what you'd really been doing, gosh, who knows where you would have been sent.
Go off to boarding school. Dena, I don't know how to tell you this, but my need for love, my neediness never changed because the hole was still there.
Of course. It doesn't surprise me one bit.
The head boy was the most beautiful boy on earth. I was smitten with the head boy who happened to be a born-again Christian. And I don't remember how I started the conversation, but I do remember praying on my knees next to him in his bedroom as he led me to the Lord. So I used to, many nights, go to his bedroom and we would pray. He'd be praying for my soul and I'd be praying for something else. Really, I think I was just praying for just to be loved.
To be loved.
To be loved. Yeah.
Makes total sense. How long were you at boarding school for?
I was at boarding school for 2 years. And the 13th of April, 1972. So I was born in December of 56. The 13th of April, 1972, I went into the vice principal, Mr. Skierper's office to accept the Lord Jesus as my personal savior and get born again. That was the only way I could stay connected to the head boy. But
the lengths you were willing to go to.
But connection. I think that I believed that was what I needed to do.
Did you think that would make you good?
Yes.
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 And why do you remember that date so specifically? How do you remember that date?
Because it was 2 years later, Thursday, the 13th of April, 1974, that I was in Johannesburg visiting my Auntie Tilly and Uncle Teppy after being in boarding school and being a Christian for 2 years, or being the only Jew in town who had been born again. So I was being paid attention. I was going to the Pentecostal church. I was teaching Sunday school. I don't know how I was doing that, but I remember doing that.
Wow.
And though that year and a half that I was born again, I got into the church. Mm-hmm. And I think it just gave me a rudder. It gave me something.
An anchor.
An anchor. Mm. Yes.
We all need one.
So I kind of buried the sexual stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I went off to visit Auntie Tilly and Uncle Teppy in Johannesburg on an April Passover holiday. And Uncle Teppy was a traditional uncle, Jewish man, and his nephew was an Orthodox rabbi.
Okay.
And his daughter, my cousin Jennifer. Now, I understand, even from chatting with your mom last night, she heard these conversations in her home from your dad and mom about, we got to do something with Barry.
Right.
You know, we got to sort out Barry. Christian, Jesus, we got to help this kid.
Yeah, he's lost.
And so I was taken to talk to Rabbi Shane, my uncle's nephew. And I remember thinking, the Lord is leading me here to try and convert him while he was, I swear to God, this is what I thought, while he was trying to influence me.
Yeah.
So at about 2 a.m, he said, Barry, I said, I think we should end this. I'm going to go home and pray for you, and you're going to go home and pray for me. Let's go home already. The next day, my cousin calls me and says, we're taking you to talk to the Chabad rabbi in Johannesburg, Rabbi Lipska. And I'm taken to Rabbi Lipska's home, and Rabbi Lipska challenges me. You think you know what it is to be Jewish? You can accepting Christianity. You can't do that. You have no knowledge basis. Study to be a Jew and then make a decision. He challenged me. And he invited me to spend the last days of Passover in his home. So there I was on holiday in Johannesburg. Mm-hmm. went back to my brother's house, got some clothes to spend the Jewish holiday with the rabbi. And that was the beginning of, after the Jewish holiday, we went back to my brother, and the rabbi said, I want Barry to go to Jewish school, and we want to support him and give him a Jewish education and take him out of that boarding school. And my brother Rodney called my dad, who said, whatever you think is right. And so I moved into the rabbi's house. I left the boarding school. I'll never forget when they packed up my suitcase and they delivered it to me. And when it came to me, it was filled with notes from the Christians from church. And I remember that tugging at me. Like, what have I done? What am I doing? But again, I think I was just a very lost child.
Of course.
And I think that was the luckiest part of my journey, to connect with Rabbi Lipsker. I was privileged to live in his home for a year and a half, to finish my school in a Jewish school in Johannesburg.
And there must have been something so appealing to you. I can imagine, I'm guessing here, but I imagine there must have been something incredibly appealing to you to see a functional family like in his home, you know, to see a mother and a father and children at a table eating a meal together, like
with lots of guests coming into the home, lots of love and values and caring. The Rebbitzin, the rabbi's wife, who to this day has a very special place in my heart, and I know I have in hers because we still have some contact. I remember her telling me as an adult all these years later when I visited her, how she wrestled with her own belief that she couldn't hold me. She said, I knew as a young boy how much you needed to be hugged and held. And in the Orthodox world, you don't touch a stranger.
Can you explain that to our listeners a little bit? Just quickly for those listeners who don't understand.
A man and a woman are not allowed to touch unless they are married. For the sanctity of marriage, you don't have sex before marriage. You only have intercourse when you are married, and men don't touch women and vice versa unless it is your mother or your father, your parents, or a child or a brother or a sister or a grandparent.
Wow.
You don't have physical contact with the opposite sex.
And she looked at you and just wanted to hold you and
wanted
couldn't.
to hold, and I felt her love.
Oh, God.
I felt her love.
That hurts.
So I lived with them for 2 years, and then they sent me off to America to go to rabbinical school, to study in yeshiva.
Wow.
And to build a body of understanding and Jewish knowledge to live my life as an observant Jew. And I embraced that wholeheartedly.
Yes.
And those were wonderful, rich, beautiful years of my life that gave me a foundation that I veered from ultimately because it didn't acknowledge, it didn't allow me to fully be who I was.
Yeah.
But I had buried that side of myself. I buried my sexuality, my homosexuality, my same-sex attraction. And I followed that path. I believed wholeheartedly. I studied in yeshiva, in rabbinical school in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, from 1975 to 1980. I lived there for 4.5 years by the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe of saintly memory, this very holy leader of that community of world Jewry. And those were incredibly, profoundly rich years of my life. Now, I remember over those years, I would speak to Colin, my brother that I'm so close with. And he would say to me, Barry, how are you doing? And I would say, I'm happy. This is my life. But sometimes I just wish I could be like a regular, traditional South African Jew, like you guys are. But I knew that this path was what was keeping me
good
on the straight and narrow.
Mm.
And I really believed that was going to be my life's journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I embraced it wholeheartedly. From the age of 17, at 18, I went to New York. I lived there till I was 22, 23. After 4.5 years, I just couldn't study anymore. I was like done. I was like, Rabbi, I can't do this anymore. I left the program, and the next step is you get married. And I went on a few dates. Nothing felt right.
I can't imagine how many women fell in love with you, though, with your charm and...
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't remember any. Well, maybe one. I came out to California. I was working for a jeweler because my brother was a jeweler in South Africa.
Yeah.
So I got a job with a Hasidic jeweler in Brooklyn. I ended up repping the line, and I went out to California to carry the goods to California. And I stayed with a friend from my early yeshiva days, my first days in the rabbinical school. He was living in Miami, Florida. And I went and I stayed with him, and he introduced me to this girl, the woman that I married. And I remember feeling like this is right. And I remember I called my rabbi, and I told him that I'd met this woman, and she's an engineer, and she's attractive, and she's wonderful and strong, and she'd make a good wife and be a good mother. But I didn't feel anything. And I said that to the rabbi, and he said to me, the feelings will come. It's a very painful piece for me to talk about, in the sense that I wish I'd been able to fully embrace my truth. I wish I had not taken her down through a marriage that ended in divorce 8 years later. I never meant to hurt her. I never wished that my life's trauma and in my own healing journey, as I came to terms 8 years later in the marriage with the fact that I was a gay man and I wasn't able to live my life in that way. Once we were married and I became a businessman and we had our children, we had 3 kids, I realized my same-sex attraction started to grow.
Yeah,
to reawaken.
And this thing the rabbi told you was going to happen didn't happen, like that you would eventually feel for her, or that that the feelings would come. They didn't come.
I loved the life that we had together.
Yeah, and that you were having children.
And we had a family. It was everything that I wanted, but I wasn't able to be that partner. I wasn't able to be the husband for her, the life partner for her that she expected and wanted. You know, I said to her years later, if everything is providential, if everything is governed by
a
higher power, maybe it was just meant to be that we got together to have these 3 beautiful children. And that was the blessing of our lives. But at the same time, she didn't have the opportunity to be with a man who would love her for the rest of her life. And for that, I am remorseful. I was going to say eternally remorseful. I don't think about that all the time. But in this truth and in this moment, I absolutely wish that I could have been that person for her. But anyway, I wasn't. And
I feel deep sadness that you were unable to be your true self, and you had to bury your true self so far down and suppress it so deeply and follow this other path that would make you morally right and good. And it was so far from who your truth was inside, to the point that you did it for 8 to 10 years, like living a lie to yourself. Like you had to fib yourself, you know, you had to lie to yourself. And that makes me feel so sad that you didn't get to, for those 10 years or however, you know, a decade of your life or longer, you didn't get to be yourself.
I think there are many same-sex attracted people, men and women, who make choices to have a family or make choices to stay in a marriage because they've made that commitment.
Yeah.
It's part of the journey. It's part of life. Life is imperfect. Had I had the chance to have true self-awareness and realization and maturity, life would have been different. I probably wouldn't have had these 3 beautiful sons that I have been blessed with.
Yeah, and they are a blessing.
And yet, to scroll forward into today's life, the generational trauma, the effect of my choices, and it resulted in a broken home.
Yeah.
Resulted in my boys having a very orthodox religious mother, a much more liberal, less disciplinarian father, this personality that I just wanted to love them, not discipline them. And I thought that would steer them, give them enough in life to keep them whole and complete. I always felt that I never wanted to do to my children through divorce what my mother did to me through death. And I think that held me in the marriage for a long time.
You put a lot of responsibility on yourself, not to make this a therapy session, but
by choice or by life's, just by the way things have played out, how my life has unfolded. So in 88, I did get divorced. The boys were 2, 5, and 7.
Wow.
I tried to be the best connected father that I could be, and I did go into the home 2 nights a week and have dinner with them and do homework with them and fall asleep with them, and then get up and go back to my apartment. I tried to be supportive of that Orthodox life that I had agreed to raise them into. I think I did that for many years until they got older, and then they wanted to spend more time with me, and they didn't want to be so religious. And I think the disparity of our lifestyles were very far apart, and they ultimately ended up living with me from teenage years, from 15 and 14 and 15. They started living with me. And ultimately, my 3 sons did not end up staying Orthodox. And I can only scroll forward to, well, I had 40 years of a career, 20 years in healthcare management, in business management, in medicine, and then managing clinics and medical centers. And then I got into the Jewish funeral business, which is a story in and of itself.
I wanted to talk about that. Can we talk about that quickly? Because that was another thing I remember growing up that I would hear about Uncle Barry, that you were like a funeral director. So you were a rabbi, and then you became a funeral director, and then you were this fabulous gay man. And I was like, how has this all been in one lifetime?
For the record, since this is being recorded. For the record, I was neither a rabbi nor a funeral director.
The stories that get passed down.
So I went to rabbinical school. I never took the final tests. I never studied for the actual rabbinate to get that degree.
Okay. But you were close enough.
They wouldn't say so. I wasn't a funeral director. I ended up had an opportunity. I was in a relationship with a wonderful human being who was in Los Angeles, who was the head of the Jewish Free Loan Association, which is part of the Jewish Federation, which provides loans to the community, both Jewish and non-Jewish, interest-free. It's an integral part of Jewish communal life that there be a system that people can borrow money to get through difficult times and not have to pay interest. I'm sure it exists here in Australia as well. I was living with a gentleman for 2 years, and he was being honored by the community for his work, for his philanthropy. And at the same dinner, the head of the cemetery of this very large Jewish cemetery and mortuary organization in California was also being honored. And I met him that night at the dinner. We ended up chatting, and he felt like I would be a good fit in that organization.
Yeah. I can see why he would have thought that.
I had a strong Jewish background. It was a Jewish organization. It was dealing with end-of-life realities.
I feel like I can understand that part. Like, you have the capacity, for as long as I've known you and our connection, you have the capacity for very hard conversations, hard times, holding people in crisis, holding people through. And maybe that's part of, as you say, your trauma, but also your superpower is that you have this ability to sit with people through difficult times and difficult things without judgment, without bias. That's always been my feeling of our time together. And I can see why someone else would see you working in that industry. I shouldn't call it an industry, but it is one, I guess.
It is an industry.
Yeah, but you would be the right person, like death doulas, you know, it's like it's a very specific person who has the capacity to do that job.
Yes. And I felt very valued, and I was able to make a good living doing it, and felt valued for the work that I was doing.
So you would support families through...
Well, I actually was in the sales department, and I was helping families in advance make preparations for either a loved one who was elderly and was going to need cemetery property and funeral arrangements in
the near future.
In the future. And at the same time, in California, the funeral business it's very difficult. You have to buy your plots, and it's a very difficult thing to do when you've lost your loved one in that moment. And families also want to be together.
Near each other, yeah.
So I became a businessman in this niche.
In the death domain.
In the death domain. And I helped families for 20 years make these arrangements. And you were able to buy more affordable arrangements, and you were able to pick plots that had a view and were on the hill and maybe was in a private family garden setting with 12 spaces for the next generation. And these were wealthy Los Angeles Jews and some celebrities, et cetera, et cetera. And I was able to make a very good living.
Okay.
And I did that for 20 years. And in 2012, I had a back injury, and I was able to stop working, and I had a disability policy.
At this point, where are you at with your sexuality, with your authenticity? And do your boys know? Do your sons know at this point?
So I got divorced when they were 2, 5, and 7. I kept a very low profile in terms of my sexuality. I didn't expose them for a couple of years. Then I got into this relationship with the gentleman that was being honored by the Jewish community, and that was in 92. And in 92, I decided that it was time to come out to my boys. And I remember telling them that there are all kinds of love. There's the love of a mommy and a daddy to a child, and there's the love of a husband to a wife, and a wife to a husband, and a brother to a sister. And there's also the love of a man to a man and a woman to a woman. And that daddy loved a man. I remember my middle son, my sensitive, beautiful middle son. I remember him saying to me, he must have been 7 or 8 at the time. And I remember him saying to me, Daddy, can't you just keep it a secret?
Oh.
Because in that community, in the Jewish community, the Orthodox world the Orthodox school that they were going to, there weren't gay dads.
Of course.
This was 35 years ago.
Oh my God, my heartstrings, like you've kept it a secret for so long. You finally have the courage to come out, and then your 7-year-old son begs you to please
Daddy,
keep it a secret.
Please, can't you keep it between us?
Oh God.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that did to you.
Yeah.
What that does to you. Like, did you consider keeping it a secret for longer? Or were you like, I can't do this anymore?
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I would still go back into the Orthodox community. People knew I was struggling to just really come to terms with who I was, and I was no longer Orthodox and practicing in the same way, but I was still doing it to support my boys because I had agreed to do that when we got married. So it was always this push and pull that I still kept an apartment in Los Angeles and kept it kosher for the boys and kept the Sabbath and try to observe. But, kids know the truth.
Yeah.
They knew that I was doing it for them. Eventually, it all kind of became in the open. As they became teenagers, they were the ones who said to me, Pops, we don't want to live this way. We don't want to keep kosher. We don't want to have to hide to you and Mom that we're not keeping kosher. It's like, we don't want to do this.
We're all lying to each other.
Yeah, we're all lying to each other. I'd like to say that part of my blessing, part of the blessing in my life and my journey is that my boys are beautiful. Today at 38, 39, 42, and 44, there's been trauma. There have been struggles. Everybody's finding themselves, and my boys are blessed and in their lives. My middle son is a successful attorney with a beautiful wife, and
A beautiful
a
child.
beautiful child. And my youngest is in Chicago with a beautiful partner and a beautiful life. And he's a very special,
He is very special.
a very special boy with morals and ethics and values and kindness. And I'm very lucky. I have 3 beautiful sons. Life ain't perfect. There have been valleys and peaks. I'm very close to my boys. I'm very lucky to have as I got older, I had an 18-year relationship with a lovely guy, a Peruvian guy. For 18 years, we lived in the Hollywood Hills. We had this guest property where we had these 3 Airbnb homes.
Which were constantly taken up by Australian actors and musicians. You've had every Australian actor and musician live at your house for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
became an iconic thing. And the parties we had and, it was just fabulous.
It was fabulous.
It was fabulous.
Rich, blessed, lucky, wonderful. And I never thought that would end. But in 2020, I did end my 18-year relationship, and we did sell the property. We closed down the Airbnb. I never thought it would end. I'd wanted it to continue and maybe run it myself, but it didn't work out that way. And that chapter closed, and I took off a year, and I decided at that point, none of my boys were married. I didn't have grandchildren. And so I thought, let me take off a year and come to Cape Town and be with my brothers. I have 2 brothers in Cape Town. And I came to Cape Town, and I was so happy to be with my brother and sister-in-law and my nephews and my family in Cape Town. And I fell in love with cold water swimming, and I got into cold water swimming in a big way, and that became so pivotal for me. And I decided I'm going to stay in Cape Town, and I was lucky enough to get a beautiful place on the water in Bantry Bay, and that's where I'm living, and that's where I've been for the past 4 years. And my ex-partner moved to Palm Springs, and he found a beautiful relationship, and he's happy. And I've met a beautiful man, a wonderful human being that I am in love with and blessed and happy with. And we are together in Cape Town. And now actually we're on holiday here in Australia visiting his son and daughter-in-law and grandchildren. And life is pretty blessed, pretty wonderful. And I also want to say that I've come full circle, even in my Jewish journey, where I've connected with the Garden Synagogue in Cape Town, South Africa, that is open and connective and community-based and non-judgmental. And it has allowed me to connect in the most beautiful and authentic way, even to my Judaism.
I was about to ask you where that stands now, your spirituality with your sexuality and your authenticity. Like, how do you still relate to God and to your religion? But it seems like you have found this beautiful balance.
I do have a beautiful balance. Judaism and tradition and observance are still important to me and powerful in my life, even if I'm not practicing them in the same traditional, in the same observant way that I did in the earlier years. So I'm not an Orthodox Jew today, but celebrating Shabbat and having Friday night dinner and celebrating the holidays and observing in this way is very meaningful for me. And the full circle is the connected pieces with my boys, with community, with my partner, with my family. I think I've had a lucky, blessed life and a fair amount of success that I can say today. I feel pretty whole and very blessed and very lucky and very loved.
You are very loved. You are so loved. And I'm so grateful to hear this tiny part of your story, because I know your story is just even bigger and bigger than this. I'm so grateful that you would be so open and vulnerable to share your story with me and with our listeners. And this is what Life Academy is about. It's about life lessons, it's about authenticity, it's about connection. It's exactly what we're trying to do here. And you're just a living, breathing example of someone who I just think, despite the cards you were dealt, you've just chosen love every time. And it's so beautiful, and it makes me feel really emotional because I love you so much.
Thank you, Dena. I love you too.
I love you so much. I'm so in admiration of you. And I just think you are such an amazing person and such an amazing father. And I think you're so hard on yourself sometimes. And I'm just like, there's things we didn't even get to talk about today. But, you know, when I was in LA, like through my darker times, you know, you just supported me through so many moments I just remember being on your couch, like having a panic attack or something. And I just like remember you just always treated me with this unconditional love and no judgment, just always just open arms, love and food and connection. And you're just such a beautiful spiritual human being who I have admired for so long. And I just feel very blessed to have this conversation with you.
I just think it's the gift of life. I think it's the gift of my genetics that I have what I have, that we all have what we have. How lucky are we to have the lives that we have? How privileged are we? I hear your words and your love and your adoration. They touch my heart deeply. There's no credit for me because I didn't do anything. I think I was really blessed to have this life and to be able to share what I have. And these are the gifts that we are blessed with.
Yeah, I wish we had more time, but it's a beautiful sort of full circle place you're at now in your life where you're in your truth, in your authenticity. Your children are having children. You're becoming a grandfather. You're meeting my daughter. You're just in this beautiful place in your life. You're healthy. You're swimming in the oceans.
So those were the words that were just going through my brain.
It's just amazing.
I'm swimming in the ocean.
Swimming in the ocean. It's just brilliant.
And, you know, when I swim in the ocean, I feel connected to my roots.
Yeah.
I feel connected to my mother.
I
feel like I'm swimming in her energy.
Oh, beautiful. When I'm in the ocean is when I feel most connected to God, to my higher power. So I really hear you on that. Now, before we finish, we ask all our guests because this is Life Academy, we ask all our guests for a little bit of homework or a recommendation. So one or the other, is there anything you're doing, you're reading, you're using, you're loving that you would recommend, or any homework that you have for our listeners to try or to do? It might be open water, cold water swimming, I don't know. But is there anything that comes to mind? I didn't give you preparation on this, sorry.
I think I would say that we have to be kind to each other. We have to learn to love ourselves. The ocean has allowed me to connect to something true, to push myself beyond what I thought I was capable of in the cold water, in the deep ocean. If we could all just pause before we judge people, before we criticize people, and that's a tough one for me because I am critical. Try to have a little humility in life. If we could be a little humble, if we could pause and have a little humility.
A bit of Selah.
Yeah, maybe we'd be in a better place in the world.
I think that's beautiful homework. I'm going to stay on the same tangent as you. I usually give a recommendation, but today I'm going to give some homework. I had a therapy session today with my brilliant therapist who is just one of the wisest souls I've ever come across, and I'm so lucky to have her as a therapist. And we were working on something that comes up a lot for me around shame. Like it's probably I have a very self-critical mind and a perfectionist sort of mind, and shame can really spiral me into bad places. And we were just working on what we always do in therapy. She jokes, she's like, Dena, I'm at a point with you, all we ever do is shame reduction. So she said, I really need to come back to self-compassion and self-love and having a really deep think about what I judge myself for. Yeah, anyway, to put this sort of simply for our listeners, I think if everyone in alignment with you, if we can all just work really hard on staying in our own lanes and loving ourselves as much as we can with deep compassion, where we forgive ourselves, where we love the reality of who we are, the truth of who we are, I think this world would be a better place. And I'm working on that at the moment, just staying in my lane, practicing self-compassion. That'll be me for this week. I'm so grateful to have had you on Life Academy. I think our listeners are going to love this episode so much. I will have to get you back to Australia for part 2 because I know there's so much more to the story.
Thank you, Dena. Thank you for inviting me into this safe space to share a little bit of my story.
Thank you.
And
All right,
hope,
guys.
And I hope that it's helpful for some people.
Oh my God, it's going to be so helpful for so many, so many.
Thanks.
All right, guys, the bell's going to ring now. We love you lots. Mwah. Bye.